So, guys, welcome to another episode. And today I'm excited because we are going to be talking about finances, investing when it comes to us as dentists. And I've got the one person who you go to when you want to talk about investing as a dentist. We've got Dr. James Martin with us. Dr. James Martin, thank you for being on this call with me today.
Oh, you flatter me, my man. You flatter me. Thank you so much. It's been a flipping pleasure to be here. And right back at you, my friend. I've been equally excited to come on today and talk about anything and everything investing, and not just your conventional investing stuff. A few twists chucked in there as well. And we're also going to make it specific to dentists.
Yes, definitely. And just for those you know, most people in dentistry know what you do, who you are, but just for those very few that have been in a rock, just give us a little background about, where you qualified from. I know you're from Northern Ireland, but just give us a little brief introduction to yourself.
Cool. All right. Well, I hope people know who I am. Perhaps some people have heard of me. That would be great. But anyway, for those who haven't, my name is Dr. James Martin. So I graduated from Leeds in 2016, Leeds Dental School. And then to cut a very long story short, throughout the course of the next 4 to 5 years, I began to read about investing. Then, once I got a little bit of a handle on how that worked, a lot of a handle on how that worked, what I did next was when I had a hiatus out of dentistry. I had this hiatus out of dentistry due to this knee injury that I had. And what I did next was I started this Facebook group centered around investing for dentists, and also not just purely straight up the financial capital markets and all of that stuff, but also the business side too, because that is a huge element that we sometimes overlook whenever it comes to, well, our perspective on investing, what we perceive investing to contain or what we perceive it to constitute. So actually, it's this more holistic vantage point on investing, which is to say, yes, we invest in the capital market. Yes, we take our money and we grow it long term in our ISAs and our SIPs, whatever the heck it is that we choose, but also that we invest in yourself, because that is a huge wealth creation portal. That is a huge wealth creation vector, investing in our skills and knowledge too, which I also preach about a lot, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Perfect, perfect. That rounds it up real nice. So, I mean, you said a lot of things there, but I want to take it to the very beginning. You mentioned that you had an injury, and one thing as dentists, we can make a great living from our career, but at the same time, anything can happen. And I know there's things like income protection, but I mean, for you, did you have anything in place that if you weren't going to be able to work for a while, you'd still be able to maintain your lifestyle and sustain yourself, your family? What were things like for you at that time?
So, great question, right? So, I had my investments, and at that time, around about that time, they mainly constituted cryptocurrency. It was mainly Bitcoin, okay? Because I like to play a little fast and loose. You know what I mean? I'm risk tolerant. I can accept a degree of risk. Now, that's not for everybody, but that was for me around about then. And partly, put it like this: now, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have weighted my portfolio as towards crypto as I had around about that time. But hey ho, you live and learn. You got to go through these experiences in order to learn the lessons. You got to be old. You got to be young and foolish to be old and wise, which is a saying that I absolutely love. You ever heard that?
No, I never
I
had
like
that.
that. It's good, isn't it? The more mistakes you make, the more wisdom you get. But anyway, so yes, that happened, and then what it revealed to me, it didn't actually cause any detriment to my earning potential until I had the surgery for it. So I actually injured the knee, and that was not great. And for anybody who hasn't heard, or maybe I don't know if I've ever said this before on any content or anything, but I tore my ACL, which is flipping zero fun whatsoever. If anybody's ever been through that, they will agree with me on that one. That will resonate with them because it's flipping painful. And actually, I continued to go to work even though I just injured my knee. I didn't even know that it needed surgery until someone told me the day after. I thought that it would just heal basically. But I continued to go to work. I had this leg brace, so I was able to get around. And then really, when it actually began to get in the way of me attending work was after I had the surgery. which meant that I needed to take some time off. And the surgeon said to me, James, you need to take 4 weeks off in order for your knee to recover. So I was young at the time, I was foolhardy, and I thought to myself, he says 4 weeks, I reckon I can do it in 2. Okay, I'll just take it easy, it'll be fine, right? Went back to work after 2 weeks, worst decision ever. It was swelling up, it's becoming painful. And I thought to myself, but why the heck am I going to work? Why am I risking my long-term health? Why am I sacrificing my health for money in the short term when this could have long-term implications? And plus, as well as that, that was when I'd already done all this pre-reading and learning on how you can invest your wealth and also how you can create more in alternative ways outside of dentistry. And I just thought, James, now's the time. It's like you put in all this prep for this moment. So what that meant was I had this epiphany, and I thought, well, if now's a good time as any to just take some time out from dentistry and then employ all those methods and enhance them even further and really, really fall back on them. Yeah. And then after that happened, I left my job. I said to my boss, listen, this is really not working. I'm really sorry. I need some really long time out. I don't know when I'm going to be back. I think it's better off that I just leave, if I'm honest, to find someone else. And that's what happened. And then I had this 4-week. The doctor said to me, I called the doctor up and I said, listen, I'm really sorry. I should have listened. This is what's happened. You said 4 weeks. I went back to work after 2 weeks. I've been working for a week. The knee's huge. It's like purple. It's in really bad shape. What should I do? Right. And he said, okay, you're going to listen to me this time. You don't need 4 weeks. You need 4 months. Okay. And I was like, right, listen, I'm going to listen to this dude. I questioned him before. I'm not going to question him now, right? Took this 4-month hiatus out of dentistry. About a week after that, I think I started Dentistry Invest, the Facebook group. And then really interestingly, I started posting content on there. I'd always wanted to post content. I always felt like that was my energy. That was always something that I wanted to do. And here's the thing, I wanted to do it just for fun. You know, I wasn't really attached so much to whether or not anybody would engage with it or watch it. Thankfully, some people did. And the group started to grow and it became a thing. And somebody shared it on For Dentists by Dentists, which is one of the larger Facebook groups. And then I remember that the members started to increase quite a lot. And I thought, okay, wow, we're really on to something here. And then I went back to dentistry after about 4 months. And yeah, but then at that point, my heart wasn't really in it because I had a taste of this whole other dimension, this whole other side of reality, which I connected with more, which was related to dentistry, but not exactly clinical dentistry. And then I realized that at that point I was having more fun, fulfillment from doing these other things. So I said to myself, okay, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm the sort of person, if I do something, I want to be 1000% committed to it, because then at that point I'm in a position where I can help the most people. I can do the most of that task. I can do the most of that activity. I can undertake the most of that thing, and then therefore improve the most at it and become the best as soon as possible. So for me, it's like we pick one thing and we go all in, right? Which can work, but it can also not work. But you know what? It's been 2 years since I've left clinical dentistry and I haven't looked back. Let's say that.
So at the moment, you're not a practicing dentist?
No. I retired in inverted commas 2 years ago. Retired.
Retired early.
Although to be fair, I say that whimsically and somewhat ironically, because now, if anything, it's like flipping 7 days a week. You know what I mean? But I love this stuff. You know, like you and I chatting right now, Arnold. This is work inverted commas. You know, this is fun, right?
So for the person that's going to tear the ACL next month, next year, they've just qualified as a dentist. What are you saying to them to future-proof themselves?
You know what, right? You want to hear something freaky? Somebody reached out to me, and his name was James, and he was an FD, and he tore his ACL. Well, if he wasn't an FD, he was in and around that. I think it was just afterwards, and my heart went out to that guy, and I was like, "Whoa, that is so what a coincidence." So what I would say is, I would say that no matter what perceived negative thing has stricken any one of us, whether it be the ACL or whether it be something else, if we have the mindset that we can see the opportunity, that we can see that there may be an opportunity there, or there will be an opportunity there. There always is an opportunity there. Then what it means is we can frame it in a positive way. Life happens for us, not to us. right? And what I mean by that is any event in our life can serve us if we choose it, to, and we choose to learn the lesson there. We just have to see it from that vantage point, and we'll always find something good, something that can be useful for us, something that can enhance us as a person going forwards. Very powerful.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So I want to change gears here. Financial freedom. It sounds amazing. It sounds great, but what is it?
That's a dream right there. Okay, right. So I really like this question, and I've got a really long-winded answer. I'm going to do my best to summarize this response. And the reason is it's got something really powerful contained therein. So if you think about it, right, financial freedom, the definition is where you can choose to work or not work, right? You have the option, right? So another way of describing financial freedom is we stop exchanging present unhappiness for future happiness. So what do I mean by that? Most of us go to a job, and whether we hate it or whether we quite like it, we'd still rather be doing something else. So there's a compromise there. Are you with me? Yeah. So the thing that we'd rather be doing in that moment, the thing that will make us really happy is like 10 out of 10 in terms of fulfillment, right? And that can be anything. That can be lounging around, that can be TV, that can be on holiday, whatever, right? It might even be your job. You might actually love your job, and that's cool. Are you with me? Yeah. So that thing for you in terms of satisfaction is 10 out of 10, right? But we have to do this other thing to earn money, as in our job, so that we can sustain ourselves, so that there's some money coming in, so that we don't run into problems, so that we don't lose the roof over our head, right? So we're exchanging unhappiness because there's a compromise there to some degree, whether it's 7 out of 10 or as a job, whether our job is 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, or 2 out of 10, there's always a compromise there. And the promise is we're going to be happy at some point in the future when we retire, because that's what we're all told that we will be, right? So that's when life supposedly goes to 10 out of 10, right? But it doesn't always work like that, does it? Okay, because if you ask people who have just retired, they're happy for a bit. But my parents went back to work after a while, and so they couldn't have been. They maybe if they spent their whole life looking forward to this goalpost, right? And then when they got there, it wasn't quite how they imagined, right? So we kind of live under this mirage. So we live in this illusion our whole life. And when we get to this point, we're going to be happy. But when people actually get there, are they always? Actually, most commonly not, right? So that's kind of a myth to a degree. So I'm going to build on that in 2 seconds. But can I just confirm that made sense, Arnold, so far?
Yeah, no, that made absolute sense. Yeah. Trading this temporary unhappiness for a future happiness. Yeah.
Promise of being happy, right? Yeah. Promise being the operative word, because promises should come true, right? But they don't always, right? And the more someone is true to their word, does a promise come true, right? But not always is that the case. Are you with me? Yeah. So here's the thing, right? We're exchanging present unhappiness for a future promise of being happy. Okay. So by that definition of retirement or financial freedom, okay, there's actually 3 ways that we can be financially free, right? If you think about it, right? The first one is we earn so much money, okay, that we don't have to go to work anymore, and we can do whatever the heck we like with our time, right? Now, we can either work to build a business or earn money and invest it over the course of our life, okay, to get to that point where we have that pot where it's many millions, okay. Usually it's around like 2-3 million, okay, is enough for one to live the rest of their days. Depends on a few other factors, but let's call it that, right? So that's the magic number ish for lots of people. Yeah. So really we have to get that bank balance, okay. So however we get there, right, most people choose the certain path, which is to work and have a career and invest what they have, the abundance that they have, the extra that they have, and grow that pot, right? Now, usually that takes like 20-30 years. You can win the lottery, you can start a business, there'll be an element of fortuitousness in there. Are you with me? However you get it, you have to get it, right? So that is the most obvious way. We earn enough money to get to that point where we don't have to work anymore. So therefore, we don't have to sacrifice unhappiness in the moment for happiness in the future. Are you with me? Yeah. That's the first way. Lots of graft or a huge amount of luck, okay? Second way, think about it. If you don't need any money, right, then what that means is that you don't have to work anymore, right? The man who wants for nothing, you have no power over the man who wants for nothing. If you want nothing, right, then cash has no power over you. Are you with me? That's from a book, by the way, 48 Laws of Power. I really love that book, right? But think about it, okay? We lack our creature comforts. We need to eat, right? Unless you want to be foragers or live up a mountain or something like that. We need to eat. It's nice to have the heating on, right?
Yeah.
So realistically, even though you might be able to reduce your outgoings quite a lot, there's still going to be some level of money that you need to have those creature comforts, unless we want the life of a hermit, you know, the life of someone who, oh, you know, like they live like a nomad, or, you know, whatever the, you know, the
Very
terminology.
minimal.
Yeah, very minimal. Yeah. So realistically, we're going to need some money at some level. So that is not practicable for most people, is the second way, right? What about the third way, right? The third way is where you love what you flipping do, whatever that is,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Because if you think about it, you're not sacrificing happiness in the short term. You're happy. It just so happens that the thing that makes you happy also generates you money, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Okay. And then actually, you don't really need money at that point, right? Well, you don't need to be so conscious about how much you're earning because you're happy anyway, right?
Yeah.
You're happy. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what that means is you can earn money doing the thing that you love, right? Tuck a little bit of it away, have money in the short term. But the thing is, there's no compromise on your happiness whatsoever because you're actually doing what you love, right? Now, easier said than done. How many people would describe their job as 10 out of 10 in terms of fulfillment? Very few, right? But here's the thing, even if we can get as close as possible to 10 out of 10, then what it means is we're happier in the now rather than living our life on this basis that we will be happy at some point in this future, this promise which may not come true. And that's a really sad way to go through 30 to 40 years of our existence. And by the way, it's a total construct. It's a total societal construct. Somebody just made that up one day. And we all kind of went along with it. And that's traditional finance planning. And that's not to say that that isn't right for some people. But I think that a lot of people get shoehorned into that version of financial freedom when it doesn't actually work that well for them. And when you know these things, you're able to elevate yourself beyond that and be more powerful and make conscious decisions which are better for you.
Just clarify that version of financial freedom again that people get shoehorned into.
So what I mean by that is the whole retirement concept. So the retirement concept being what we have to exchange unhappiness, that we have to, because that's the premise. We have to be on. People think that you have to be unhappy, or we have to not be unhappy, but we have to compromise on our happiness to some degree. You know what I mean? And compromise happens as soon as something is not 10 out of 10 fun and fulfilling in the moment. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
But we all think, we're all told this narrative that we have to go to our job and that we have to sacrifice happiness, okay, for most of our lives to get to that point where we can be financially free. Right? Actually, when you know the 3 ways of retirement, that shifts your focus because it's like a laser. Your brain will always try to prove itself right. Right? So if you try to find the things that make you happier in the here and now and generate your money, then you've got the best of both worlds. But it comes from understanding the 3 ways to be retired. Does that make sense, Noy?
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. I wanted to ask then, because you work with a lot of dentists, what percentage would you say dentistry is their happy place, whether it's 10 out of 10? You know, because I enjoy dentistry, but it's not 10 out of 10. So have you ever met anybody who's said it's a 10 out of 10?
This is a brilliant question. And I actually feel like I'm in a fortunate position that I will have a decent answer for this, or, because it's an anecdotal question, but through talking to lots of dentists all day long, you're right, you get a good feel for it, right? And I suppose from my position, the fortunate thing about my position is I am someone who talks to lots of dentists all day long. And then I usually ask them that question, actually, so I get that data. So what I would say is this. I would say that probably 5% love it. Like they would do it for free. Like they flipping think it's incredible. Okay. And that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. And genuinely, I'm happy for someone like that. The people that my heart really goes out to are the people who think it's like 2 out of 10, but they feel like it's the only way that they can make money and contribute towards their retirement. And to a degree, I feel like that is perpetuated by the finance industry as the only way to be financially free. And it's just horse hockey. It's just nonsense. If you're happy in the moment, you are free. you know. And I get that that sounds like this really woo-woo ideal thing that people throw around all the time, like life gurus throw around, you know. And maybe that is a little bit of an ideal, but even if we can take someone from 3 out of 10 to 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 in the moment, then that's a huge improvement, right? And it really, when you ask people who are 65 and people who are 70 who are retired, right, that is an awful lot of their life to sacrifice to hopefully make that point where they're told that you will be happy because you're free, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get there, your perspective is totally different, right? And here's the thing, not to be super morbid, but there's no guarantee any of us are going to live that long, right?
Yeah.
And there's no universal law of the universe that says you have to wait 30 years, you have to work for 30 years to be retired. There's no law of the universe that says that, right?
Yeah.
That's totally a construct. That's totally a narrative that we were fed, that if you scratch the surface for 2 seconds, it isn't even necessarily true.
Yeah. So
But let me pause for 2 seconds. Let me pause for 2 seconds, right? Does this make sense, or is this too abstract? Does this make sense?
It definitely makes sense. I want to drill into a few more things with you. So if you ask somebody, do you want financial freedom? I'm sure 100% are going to say yes. But then comes the reality. What actually takes us away from financial freedom? What decisions are we making that are, actually taking us away from this?
I love how beautifully you've asked that question, right? Because it's kind of like this. It's kind of like it's a little bit like saying this, you know, that what is costing everybody $2 million a year, right?
Yeah.
The fact that we don't know how to make $2 million a year, right? So it's costing us $2 million minus our pay slip every year, right? And I love how you've worded that question. It's kind of like a little bit of a reframe, right? Because our brain will look for the bar we set it, right? So if we make the bar 2 million minus this, then what we'll do is we'll do things to be able to get to that point, right? And of course, they have to be moral and ethical and all the rest, right? But it's a little bit of a reframe. It's saying that that's where we should be rather than this is where we should be. If, of course, that's what we want to do, because it's not all about money. Money is only important when you need more of it to have more freedom in your life. That's the only reason that it's important, right? And actually, just blindly accruing money is also unhealthy in itself, because you're just chasing a number on a bank screen. And what are you doing to yourself and the people around you to get to that point, right? There should always be an objective. There always has to be an amount that we're aiming for, right? So to answer your question, okay, here's the thing. I feel, in fact, let me give you a description, okay, which will help, or a model through which to regard finance, okay? So think about it like this, right? We're thinking about the subject of wealth. Let's imagine that there's an orb floating in front of us right now. And this orb is the orb of knowledge whenever it comes to finance. So everything that humanity knows about money is contained in this orb. Everything they will know, everything they did know, everything they knew at one point and then they forgot, is all contained within here, right? So that is the orb of knowledge whenever it comes to wealth, right? Here's the thing about the orb of knowledge. It actually has 2 halves: building wealth and creating wealth. So if you imagine that orb, cut it into 2 hemispheres: build wealth and create wealth. Okay. So what am I talking about?
Just specify building, the difference between building and creating.
Yes, 100%. So you'd like me to explain the difference? Is that what you said?
To me, I know. Maybe I'm just being too simple, but it sounds like the same thing: building wealth and creating it.
I see what you mean. Right. Yeah, I totally hear you. So here's the thing: building wealth is how we invest. So we build our wealth like how we build a house, right? Okay, so we build it brick by brick by brick by brick by brick. Then at the end, we have the house, the financial house, and in the house we have security, as in we have financial security, right? But we've got to build the house and put the roof on it first, right? Where do we actually get the bricks for the house, right? That's creating wealth, right? We have to create the bricks, right? Now, building wealth is akin to investing, because what we do is we make contributions to an investment account, then it builds over time, like stacking the bricks on top of each other. Of course, that's not exactly true, because it grows in a compounding fashion. Therefore, it grows exponentially rather than linearly, but we still have to build the house, right? That's the point. So that's how investing works. People think that we invest for passive income. It's partly true. The main reason that we invest is so that we get a compounding pot that one day that we can live off. And the idea is that you don't dip into it until you hit 65, right? Most of the time. There's a little bit more to it than that, of course. And by the way, we're using 65. We just pulled out. It's an arbitrary number that we're using as a typical retirement, and it could be sooner, it could be after. We don't know. Okay, but we're just using that today as what's a good word? As a stopgap, I suppose, or an explanatory term. Are you with me? So anyway, create wealth. Creating wealth is where we get the bricks from. Okay, so we have to be able to go to work, right, to get the money. That's usually how it's done, right? Unless we create something else that generates money for us, right? But for most people, for 95% of people, we've got some time. We're taking our time, we're putting it into a system, which is our job, and we're obtaining money as the output, right? Let me pause because I've been talking for a while. With me?
Yeah. You made it clear about building wealth, creating wealth, and for us, creating wealth is the job that we have. That's the way we know until we retire. Yeah.
Hell yeah, right? So for most people, what they think is they think that they can use investing as they think that they use investing as something to create wealth, but really investing works slightly differently than that. You have to be able to leave your money in those investment accounts for a long time to get the best result, right? If you want to actually earn more money, which is what a lot of people are after, that's probably not via the investing path per se, or at least investing in stocks and bonds and all of that, right? Now that you can invest your money, just not in the assets that your financial advisor will typically link you with, will typically recommend to you, at least if you want to earn more money, right? Earning more money comes from your skills and abilities, generally speaking, right? So if you think about it, in any system, there's an input, there's a process, and there's an output, right? So we want the input, which is our time, to be able to be multiplied by the system as much as possible to give us the greatest possible output in terms of money, right? People talk about passive income. If you work 1 hour a week and you earn 100 grand a week, right? You've got very close to passive income, right? Because you're working 1 hour a week and obtaining 100 grand, right? How do we get to that point? We have to put some energy into enhancing the system, right? Enhancing the processes. What are an example of the systems and processes? Our skills and abilities, right? So a dentist who is extremely good at describing the value of what they do to the patient, and therefore the patient is willing to invest in them to a higher standard, is someone who has more leverage, is someone who has enhanced that system because they're good at selling, right? They're good at describing that value, right? Another way, and that's obviously important. We have to be able to describe the value of what we do, but we have to be able to serve those people as well. So we have to be able to give them a lot of value on the back end in return, give them a lot of value in terms of the treatment that we give them, right? So we can only ever ask someone to invest more in us when we know that we're going to give them so much, our quality of treatment is going to be so flipping high that whatever they invest in is going to look like a good deal, right? And that's leverage. Are you with me? Well, that's just one example, I mean, there's hundreds of examples.
Would you say it's probably fair to put your focus into being able to earn a lot more before you start pouring that into investment vehicles?
I would say it's a great question, and it's a very controversial one. Sorry, will you finish just then, Arnold?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. I thought there was more to that. So here's the thing. Ultimately, there is going to be no right or wrong for anyone. Are you with me? If you ask me personally, particularly anybody sub 30, we should be spending the majority of our investable capital enhancing our skills, because that's going to be the thing which allows us to earn more money for the rest of our life. And that compounds as well, right? Then we take some of that and we put it into financial investments, and we put it into capital markets. Are you with me? Now, to what proportions we do that, that's going to be different for everybody. And some people might just be happy with what they earn, and they might be happy with their position in terms of how many hours a week they're working, and they might be happy. And this is where I have to be super sensitive. There's no formula that suits everybody, right? If you want my personal opinion, I think that everybody who's sub 30 certainly and even a little over 30 as well,
Mm.
you know, there's no hard cutoff point, should be prioritizing, very careful with my words, prioritizing, not totally focusing on, but certainly putting more energy into investing in the, not the S&P 500, not the S&P 500, the S&Me 500.
Nice.
By the way, that wasn't mine. I'm not going to claim credit from that one. I heard it. I heard it on a podcast the other day. It was Alex Hermosi's podcast for anybody who's interested,
Love it. Yeah.
and he talks about some similar stuff to this as well. And I have to say that I agree with it. I do, because this is the thing. I really don't want people to get trapped into taking all of their wealth and putting it into the build wealth side of the sphere, because what that means is that you're locked in. Okay, you're locked into this pathway that you mightn't necessarily be happy with. I mean, we saw I don't know if you saw the budget today. The chancellor announced that there's no lifetime allowance now on pensions. Okay, there's no lifetime allowance. Previously, if you had over $1 million in there, you got really heavily taxed. Okay, and now you can put £60,000 in your pension every year. Now, pensions are great, don't get me wrong, and this totally depends on the individual, right? I feel that when we're young, putting our money into this magic pot that will compound it, okay, will compound it with time, but it also means that we're saying goodbye to it for 30 years, actually means that we're trapped on the build wealth side of things whenever we might necessarily like our jobs, you know, and that's a huge sacrifice to make. And all these decisions, being able to make better decisions, comes from awareness and education. And we're led to believe that we have to prioritize that, okay, when actually it mightn't be the path for everyone, right? It may not be the path that suits everybody. It may be the path that suits some, but I feel like most people are guided toward, lots of people are guided towards that don't actually necessarily align with it, or don't even realize that there's other alternatives, which is what I'm here to preach about today.
I just want to ask you there. Okay, so I know there's no one size fits all, but if somebody came to you and said, James, what is the perfect investment strategy? I've invested in myself. I'm now ready to invest in different funds, stocks, whatever. What is the perfect one to execute on?
I love that. Okay, so we're kind of taking the S&Me 500 out of the game, right? Now we're like, James, just tell me about the S&P and all of that, right? But for anybody who doesn't know, the S&P in simple terms is America's stock market. So it's an example of something that someone may invest in. No financial advice, by the way, on that one. Just to be super clear, we have to be super careful about this stuff. So it's very, very important that if somebody doesn't have a total understanding of how the capital markets work, to definitely get some advice, particularly when we're talking about these things. Because here's the thing, you can have the best investment, but actually most of it comes down to your execution as to whether or not you'll actually generate any funds from that. So pure and simple, if you don't need the money for 10 years or greater, your portfolio, when you remove all other factors, including emotions, including ability to withstand volatility, all those other factors, which can mean that people often diverge from this philosophy that I'm about to describe. If you can just home it right down to what's going to give you the best returns and has the most historical data to prove that, then really any portfolio which we're in which we don't need the money for over 10 years, our time horizon from which we're going to start making withdrawals is 10 years or more, should in likelihood be constituted of 100% equities or 100% stocks. Okay, so what does that mean? There's a little bit more to it than that. All I'm doing right now is from a high level describing an avenue that people can use to invest their wealth. How you actually execute that, there is way more to it. Yeah. However, that little gemstone right there, that little pearl, took me flipping ages to figure out. Okay, took me so long, right? And I used to do all sorts of weird and wacky things and buying individual companies and watching them going up and watching them go down. I'm not just talking about any equities. I'm talking about funds that can represent the global stock market. Okay, but obviously we have to get into a whole host of other things like which funds and how do they work and stuff like that. That's actually the point where we cross into financial advice. So we've got to be really careful. The second I recommend a product, the second I talk about a fund, it's actually advice at that point. Before that, you can say quite a lot, particularly on a podcast as we're doing right now. But that's the line that we can't cross.
So,
and just like the caveat that one more time, even though we now know where we should be looking, there is way more to actually executing that in order for it to be successful. So I certainly wouldn't want anybody to just go ahead and jump into making those investments based off the back of what I've just said.
and somebody wants to now get that financial advice. Who do they go to? Do I go to an accountant? Do I go to a financial advisor, a wealth advisor? Who do I go to?
That's a good question. I would say it very much depends on what we're trying to achieve. Yeah, a good accountant is worth his or her weight in gold. The thing about accountants is they're very good at minimizing the tax bill in the here and now, but they don't often think about what that money might be used for because they don't always get investing that well. So what they'll say is, so here's a good example, Arnold. So they'll say, okay, well, why don't you stick all this extra money you have in the SIP, right? Then your personal tax bill is going to go from, it's going to half pretty much, okay, past a certain point, right? And then you'll be like, okay, well, I've got all this money in this SIP. Brilliant. What do I do with it? And they'll be like, I don't know. That's not my job. We've just put it in the SIP for you. We've saved you the wealth. We saved you the tax bill. Are you with me? Yeah. But then we also have money in a SIP that we need to optimize its output in terms of investing in the correct thing. And then also, as well as that, we need to understand that that money is now locked away until we hit retirement age, which will probably be 57 for most people who invest in their SIP now.
Yeah.
That's and when I say retirement age, on that instance, what I mean is the point that you can make withdrawals from your SIP.
Okay, so accountants might not give you the full picture for investing. Where else can you go to get solid advice?
I would say it's a bit like this. Anybody who's a dentist will resonate with this. When you go to we know that there can be, if we want a root canal, right, we go to a root canal specialist, right? A generalist will never be able to do it to that standard, and that's fine. That's totally okay, right? So we put it in dental terms is more understandable, right? If I want a root canal, I would pay a huge amount if I needed a root canal because I know that a specialist will be really, really, really know their stuff, get the cone beam out and all of those things, right? If they have to, yeah. So to answer to bring that back to what you were saying just a minute ago, I would find a independent financial advisor, and I'd also find one that is knowledgeable and reputable. Okay, that's exactly what I would do. Now, that is, of the diaspora of advisors that are out there, to find one that ticks those boxes, we have to do our research, definitely, because not everybody's going to be flipping amazing. You know what I mean? It makes a huge difference for us because obviously that will mean huge implications for our financial future, given the skill and knowledge of that individual that we can procure. So what I would say is, on the Dentists Who Invest Facebook group, that the advisors that are on there, I've screened every single one of them, so I know that they're of a high standard.
Perfect. I know your time is valuable. You've got a lot of different engagements to be at. Just in closing, give us some thoughts about where your mind is, where you see things going with the finance world, investing, and what are you keeping your eyes on in these next few months?
I am keeping my eyes on, put it like this. Famous last words, because no one can ever predict the markets, but I am not super optimistic on equities, at least to the end of this year. I think that there's a lot of across the board tax hikes in most of the major economies, which are probably not going to be good for those. Here's the thing: long term, they always recover, or they always have done. Short term, it's very hard to make predictions, although that's my hunch. So for me, as someone who's 31, I prioritize a lot of my investing in the S&P 500, and of course, I have it spread out across different things. Although what you might say traditional financial logic is, whenever things are reduced in price as they are right now, that now is a fire sale, therefore it represents the best opportunities. It all depends on your time horizon and what you're trying to achieve, right? You're trying to create more wealth, invest in yourself. And if you're trying to invest if you're trying to build more wealth, then at that point, that's when we prioritize financial markets, buying a business, whatever it is, however that looks for individuals. Purchasing assets is building wealth.
Perfect. And if people want to find you, contact you, what is the best way?
Best way to contact myself is via my Facebook group, which is called Dentists Who Invest, a community group for dentists who are interested in finance. You can find it on Facebook. Like I say, I've also got my website, www.dentistswhoinvest.com, where you'll be able to find my email on there. Should anything that I've said today interest you. It's been flipping loads of fun. I really hope that everybody listening got a ton of value, and they hopefully now see finance in a different way, because here's the cool thing about all of this stuff. This took me flipping ages to figure out. These are the gems of the gems, and I really hope that I've accelerated everybody who's listening's path. Everybody who is listening, I've accelerated their path to understanding of the world of wealth.
Yes, no, definitely. Thank you for all of that, all that value that you've shared. Guys, make sure to check out Dr. James Martin, Dentists Who Invest. I'll put the details in the description as well. And I'll see you guys at the next video.